Hi, I'm Karen Derricades, and you're listening to We Make Media, a podcast about how the culture we produce shapes media and how that goes both ways. I'm here with James Kerr, aka Scorpion Dagger, as he is known to his net art fans. James creates hilarious frame animations that take characters from Renaissance paintings and puts them in everyday scenarios. He's interested in ways to bring those works off of the internet and into real life, and we'll talk about the role augmented reality plays in doing that. Well, James, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Dealing.
Yeah. Dealing. Yeah. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. So tell me a bit about your first work, like when you first started doing these Renaissance GIFs.
I started, Scorpion Dagger as a project with the goal of making one animated GIF a day for an entire year. And so I was just kind of grabbing images from wherever on the net, or even like stuff from my previous collage work, like the more traditional collage work that I used to do with like glue and paper. And I was like animating them. And so one of the struggles with doing it one a day for a year was coming up with ideas and inspiration. And so one day I happened upon these paintings by Giotto, and I thought it'd be really fun to animate those. And the first one I did, I believe, was Jesus doing sit-ups. And for some reason I titled it Jesus Push-Ups. Anyways, I posted that as a GIF on my Tumblr. That's where I was, hosting all of them. And a week later, I was looking for inspiration, and I was like, I had fun with those paintings. Why don't I go back to that? And I just haven't really stopped.
And where did you find those that stuff?
Back then, I was using a lot of images from the Library of Congress because I knew it was just kind of like, in the Creative Commons, and they were allowing you to use it for whatever. I wasn't really worried about copyright or anything, so I was just kind of grabbing them from random Google image searches. But now, I try to be a bit more mindful, especially for commercial work where I grab my images from, and I try to get as far away from the paintings as possible. As in changing
the actual what's happening, or what do you mean by getting far away?
Like now I'm mainly using the paintings as a palette, so like I'll grab an eyeball from here, a nose from there, an ear from there, and try to make my characters from scratch, so they're not necessarily, just lifted straight from a painting. Like I would say an average animation I make now would probably have well over like 24 paintings in there, all mixed together.
As opposed to when you began, where you were more just making one painting, making something move in one of those paintings. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there are times where I'll just, I want to do a quick little animation for my Instagram or something. Where I'll just, take one painting and do that. But for like the more like intricate or even commercial jobs that I do, yeah, it's definitely unrecognizable. Like it's taken way far away from the original paintings, and there's dozens there. I guess to clarify that point, it's like I only worry about copyright when it comes to commissions and commercial work. When it comes to my own work, I just take work from wherever, and it's like my personal art. I don't worry about it so much there. But I mean, I think it like that challenge of worrying about copyright is kind of a fun thing to work with, when it comes to my personal work, because it forces me to take the art, to be a bit more creative with it and get a little bit deeper into creating my own things as opposed to just lifting straight from a painting. It's part of the fun for me, is getting as far away from the paintings as possible. Almost taking them off the canvas and bringing them into a new world and creating like I said before, using the paintings as a palette.
Right.
Using these museums as a palette. I think that's what, Scorpion Dagger has kind of become for me, is, that kind of campy night at the museum, taking them off the paintings after their shift is done at the museum, bringing them home into my world.
Right. And yeah, they're kind of like these little bits, and
that's it. Take an arm from here, a finger from there, an elbow from here, and mix it all together and have a new arm.
Right. That's great. That no one can claim as their own except for yours, because nobody knows where the heck each finger came from.
That's it. Like I like that kind of mishmash, that kind of like hodgepodge of images, and I don't like it when it's too clean or it's too crisp or perfect anyways. That's part of the reason why I still use like Photoshop to animate a lot of stuff as opposed to After Effects for everything, because I find like After Effects just looks too clean. I like it when it's a bit messy and a bit choppy. It's part of the aesthetic.
Absolutely. So what exactly do you do on After Effects? Like, what are the things that you jump in there for when you're like, I can't do this in Photoshop?
one of the big things for me is like moving backgrounds. You know, if like I have a car driving across the scene, just moving a background, it just looks a lot better, and it's a lot easier. Just, you know, keyframes.
And when you do it in Photoshop, are you doing it in timeline or in frame? Like, are you looking at it left or right? Yeah.
I just like the control in the frame a lot better. That's the other thing with like timeline. It's just like that. Again, it just looks a bit too clean, you know. And I just like that control of like having like a foot pointing one way a lot better in the timeline. I don't know. It's what I learned. That's how I learned how to animate. So that's what I'm comfortable with. Like, I learned all of this in Photoshop. And I think that frame animation in Photoshop is what informed my style. So that's why I kind of stick with it. But, you know, I do need to evolve. And I did learn, like, after, you know, some hesitation, I eventually jumped into After Effects and learned that, holy shit, this could like make my life easier. But so it's like, you know, it's a balance. Like, I'm trying to find that balance, you know, of style and time saving. You know, say I would animate somebody running in Photoshop, what I would do is I would just export that as like a PNG image sequence and then bring that into After Effects and play it in there, and then just play with like, you know, the time lapse, or what's it called, you know, just play with the speed of that in there and the sizing. And like I do most of my composition now, actually, and like, you know, I'll build all my elements in Photoshop, and even like a lot of the animation, and then I'll kind of compose everything, like put, you know, my characters in the space and the backgrounds and everything. I'll do that more or less all in After Effects now as well. So yeah, in Photoshop, I can kind of adjust that and get it back to how I originally wanted it to look. You know, when you're breaking it down from millions of colors to 256 colors, there's a lot of changes. So I find that like save for web option in Photoshop, I have a lot more control in trying to get it back to that. Make it look as best as possible, which you can't do as easily for me in Media Coder. Somebody's probably listening to this and is like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm a bit of a Luddite, I should admit, you know, but it's just
whatever works, right? It's the same with photography. It's the same with any medium, right? The brush the brush you're familiar with is better than the newest, latest brush.
100%. Like I've learned so much just by collaborating with people and just watching what they do. I mean, we can't really do it right now with the social isolation, but you know, like oftentimes I just go watch a friend work, you know, like who's animating, who's doing something differently, and I'll sit there with a notepad, and I think that's a great way to learn. And I, you know, just to like kind of like get back to the point before where there's like no right way of doing it. Like, I was recently hanging out with a guy who works at DreamWorks, and I was kind of like picking his brain about, you know, like how they work on like all these different shows. Like, do they all use like one software, like all the animators, like, or do they all? And he was like, no, like we just leave it up to, for the most part, we just leave it up to the animators to give us the finished product, and then we'll compile it. Like, it doesn't matter how they get there as long as they get there.
That's so interesting.
You know, they're making shows for, you know, like Netflix or whoever, even like, I think they have their own platform now. I'm not sure, but you know, they're in such a time rush to get the stuff out. It's like they can't, it doesn't matter. Like, just give me the finished product. If it looks good and we could put it in the show, that's all that matters.
But it's interesting with the file format because it's a bit different. You know, it's like in the end, it's a GIF, or it's an end, it's an MP4. You know, in the end, they sent me the PNG, and I don't know. I can't see, you know, I don't have X-ray vision to see how they constructed it, but I know that the final product is the right, you know, I can drag and drop it into this thing and it works, you know, it plays, like it functions.
Yeah,
like,
and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Like, I started, you know, making folders with like arms and folders with legs and eyeballs and heads and hair and etc. And I realized kind of quickly that I don't need to do that because I name my layers really like I have a really interesting way to name my layers in Photoshop. So when I go into Finder to look for something, I'll just write arms PSD, and then it'll just pop up in my Finder all these arms that I use. But like, you know, if I want to be like throwing arm, I'll write throwing arm PSD in my Finder, and then it'll just come up in that feed, and I could just scroll through that and just find the arms there. So I don't need to keep these folders anymore. It's just like my organization is really just how I name the layers in my Photoshop files.
Amazing. That's that's brilliant. That's a brilliant cheat for everyone out there. I didn't even know you could search that way.
You know, I have a folder, though. I should say I do have a folder that I call stuff to use,
Right.
It's on my desktop, and that will just be like, you know, beer bottle 1, beer bottle 2, you know, plank of wood. Like just all these components that I've made over the years that I just, that's like, I don't know, that's something that I really love to do, is like in the background, like these details, like off, like there's been times where I make an animation that would take me, you know, like a GIF that will last like maybe 10 seconds, that would take me like maybe like 4 or 5 hours to make, like just like the animation, but that boombox in the background, you know, that took me maybe like another 4 or 5 hours to make, you know, and like these are the details that nobody will ever see, that like I'll know, like, yeah, you know, like that tree that took me like 3 days, but the animation itself is like 2 seconds, and nobody's going to notice that tree in the background.
That's funny. That's come up in every conversation I've had with people, because
you spend so much time on that and you make it, you're more, especially in, you know, digital art, is that you can go back and use it again and again and again. And, you know, like these arms, like if you spend a lot of time making these arms, like go back and use them again and again and again, instead of like, you know, and like if you spend any time just like looking at my animations, you'll see that like there's a lot of the same stuff, you know, it's just getting reused. But, you know, because I spent a lot, you know, like right now I'm working on a project where it's essentially a fake movie trailer, and every clip is like maybe like 1 to 2 seconds long, you know, but I spent so much time making that 1 to 2 second clip that, you know, you're going to be damn sure you're going to be seeing that shit again, because I don't want to waste it, you know.
That's great. Yeah. And I was going to say, I've never seen a Renaissance painting with a boombox, so clearly, like, you're not pulling that from somewhere, right? So,
no.
When you're making that from nowhere, are you starting that from drawing? I know you work with the Wacom.
It's just like bits and corners from a Renaissance painting, you know? Like, I'll take like a little, like a gray from here and a black from here, and I'll like kind of weave it all together, like, or... You know, like oftentimes
you're building the boombox from pieces, from bits and pixels from Renaissance, from digitized Renaissance paintings.
Yeah, I'll try to take everything from the paintings. You
Amazing.
Know, like, I'll see, like, you know, like for like a speaker. Like I once I made these speakers, and I just thought, like I was looking at a painting, and I was like, you know, the way that hair is painted, it kind of looks like the weave of like the front of a speaker. So I just kind of circle cropped it and put that on my little boombox.
Oh my God, I love
just stuff like that. Yeah.
But you never use something from like Pixabay or something that's just an actual boombox, because it never matches the aesthetic or...
It doesn't, yeah, like, because I like that cracked painting, or that cracked paint aesthetic, so even though you'll never see it because it's so small on the screen, but, you know, if you zoom in, you'll see that I'll have like that kind of cracked paint effect.
There's no filter for that?
No, sometimes I'll add noise. Yeah, no. Like I'll add dust and scratches. You know, sometimes I'll do that, but... yeah, no, I wish there was a filter for that.
The Scorpion Dagger filter, they'd have to call it, because
But you know, that's another thing I'll do sometimes. Like if it's like a solid color, I'll take like a corner of a painting, you know, like where it's cracked, and I'll just like play with the opacity over that solid just to give it that aesthetic.
Right. Very cool.
Just to give it like a little bit of a texture.
Right. Yeah. So you talked about After Effects, like no longer... Did you used to be able to export as a GIF from After Effects?
Apparently.
Right. Oh, before you were even working in it.
Yeah, a long time. One of the earlier versions.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, though, that the whole, GIF, MP4 thing. So, you know, for people out there who don't know, you know, GIF is not a format that holds sound. And a lot of your stuff, as people can see online, is got sound in it. So it's not really, are you making GIFs or what are you making? And one of the advantages of GIFs for people who are listening, who might not know, is that it's an automatically looped image, right? So... you don't have to press a play button, right? It's automatically moving, which is hugely advantageous, obviously, for any artist trying to engage eyeballs, or anybody trying to build an audience in this attention economy. But
you don't have to hit play; you just go. Yeah, no, like it's funny. I used to get like frustrated. Not frustrated. I used to get kind of like a little, irked sometimes. Like my mom would like message me like, I saw that GIF that you posted on Instagram, and it's like, well, it's not a GIF technically because, it's a MOV file that I uploaded. And and it's like, I don't know. I kind of like worked myself out of that because it's kind of dumb to just, like it's like the file extension is what it is.
Yeah.
Like colloquially, GIF has kind of just become, I guess, like a catch-all for like a short animation, or so it seems, and like I have a buddy who I used to get kind of irked with as well, who'd be like, you know, like, how's the GIF business going? And I'd be like, well, actually, I haven't exported a GIF in like 3 months, you know? It's like, oh, fuck me, you know, like,
yeah,
James, who cares? You know, like, it's what I do. It's how I started. So yeah, it's all kind of a GIF, you know, for me now, or GIF, you know, sorry, people, I call it a GIF, but you know,
and most of the people you work with who work in this field call it a GIF, no? Or are we going to get into that? That's
No, let's not get into that. Yeah. I hate that.
Do you have anybody who still does that? Who does it's GIF? It's not a GIF. It's a GIF. And you're like, really? Because I've been doing them quite successfully for some time, and I can call it.
It's usually at like at a dinner party or something, or like I get introduced by somebody like, yeah, this guy makes GIFs for a living, and then the other person's like, well, actually, it's pronounced GIF. Yeah, tomato. Who cares? Only assholes care how you pronounce it. It's like me, you know, caring about the extension on the file and what it actually is. You know, it's the same thing. It's like, who cares? It is what it is, you know, and like that's all that really matters. And
now the you know, like the whole fact that a GIF can loop on its own is somewhat irrelevant. I mean, in an Instagram world, it's irrelevant because all videos are looping now. And I think even in Facebook, I'm not on there, but
yeah, you don't see GIFs much on Facebook anymore. It's mainly video because they loop automatically. Yeah, when you play them. Mm-hmm.
And you can put sound, and so you're going to, you know, naturally, like, sound is going to attract more people, potentially. Or, yeah. You know, it's going to...
Well, that's why I added sound on the Instagram, because otherwise it was just silent video. And nobody's interested in that. Mm-hmm.
You know, you've talked even since the beginning, since you've been making them, you've been talking about like how to get them off of the internet and live in the real world. You were part of a project. You have a book that's called "Do You Like Relaxing?" That uses an app, an augmented reality app, like basically an image recognition technology for folks who are out there. So the image acts as a play button to play the animation. So the animation is housed somewhere on or offline in some kind of application, and the image, when you point the lens, the camera at the image, it plays the animation. Talk to me about how augmented reality and image recognition technology has changed what you do, or even before that, what ways you were exploring to bring that off the internet and onto walls or paper or murals or I don't know what.
So yeah, when I started Scorpion Dagger, you know, doing the one animation or the one GIF a day for an entire year, the plan was like I was posting them on Tumblr just to kind of like show them to my buddies and kind of just have a place where they would all live, so I could show them to galleries. The plan was to find a gallery that would be interested in like projecting them all on a wall, so you could see the start and the end, you know, so 365 animations.
Like linear style, like a frame, like a comic book?
Yeah, just kind of like a wallpaper, but, you know, like linear style, like where you have like a grid, so you can see like the first animations and the last. And maybe, you know, did he actually improve, you know, or did he learn something over that year, or like, you know, I don't know what the end result was meant to be, but I just thought it'd be fun to have this like moving wallpaper with 365 animations.
Yeah.
And this was my idea for the project to begin with, but so as that year was wrapping up, I met with a couple galleries about projecting them, and everybody was interested, but I was meeting with commercial galleries, you know, and they were like, well, how do we sell this? Then I was like, well, maybe we could do prints, you know, and I was like, well, you know, a print like of a still of one of these animations doesn't really do it for me, you know, it's not really that interesting. So like maybe we could sell the GIFs on like a USB, you know, do like one-off, like that are not online, you know, just like this only exists on this key, or I don't know, like just all these other things. And then I was out with a friend one night, and he explained to me augmented reality and like how that worked, and how we could do a print, and then, you know, with this app, using your device pointed at the print, and it'll animate on your screen, you know. So I was really into that, and then I thought, well, why don't I approach the Fine Arts Museum here in Montreal and pitch a project with them, where I take paintings in their collection, because at this point I was using almost 100% Renaissance paintings. You know, like, why don't I take their collection and animate that, and then you can go around the museum and watch the animations there. So I met with a person there who was really into the idea, but obviously wanted to see it at work, like, you know, see it working. So then I was like, okay, now I gotta find an augmented reality app. So this was maybe 2014, 2013.
Oh, wow.
Playing with this. I think it was 2013.
You did the GIF a year of which year?
2012 into 13. So March 2012 to March 2013. And I found out there was a company here in Montreal that was doing it. And so I went to go meet with them, and to get 10 examples to show the museum, it was going to cost me $1,500. And I had no money. So I was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? I can't really afford this. And I thought maybe they would be into helping me out for free, because then they could collaborate with the museum afterwards, but nope.
You got you're way ahead probably, and they were like, we don't get how this is, this does not fit into anything we know yet, and like, no.
Yeah, I think they were trying to pitch like to museums or cultural institutions, like using them as like guides,
right,
or tour for tours, like AR for that, but not necessarily as for art projects. I mean, I can't fault them for that either. I mean, like that's what they charge for the technology for anybody, and they claim they were giving me a deal. I don't know, like, it doesn't sound like a deal, but I'm sure it probably was. I have no idea. But then I was like, that's prohibitively expensive, so what am I going to do? So I started looking into like learning how to code this stuff myself, and that lasted maybe 20 minutes. And I was out for a drink with the same guy who introduced me to AR, or suggested AR in the first place, and he was like, you know what, I know these publishers here in Montreal as well who are looking into, they want to do an AR project, they want to do a book using augmented reality. You should meet up with them. And that's when I met Antiism. I met up with Harley, and they thought it'd be a fun idea to do a book together using my animations, and they were like, we'll develop the app, and then you could take the book and use that as an example to show the museum. And I was like, this is fucking perfect.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
Did a Kickstarter.
You're going to do the work. One, the work that I figured out I do not want to do. And two, the paying for the stuff that I have already figured out I can't do.
Yeah, then I get a book, which I kind of brag. I don't even know if this is a thing, but I kind of brag that, jokingly, that it's the first GIF art book in the world.
Probably is. I would think it is, yeah.
Probably one of the, not that it matters, like, who cares, but yeah. And,
I think it matters.
Yeah, so we did that. We kickstarted the book, we got it funded, and that got released, and that was a lot of fun.
What's been the reaction to that?
The people who follow my art, I prefer saying that as opposed to fans. Like, they liked it, they bought it.
Yeah.
People like it. And
I've gotten it. It's amazing. People are like, what's happening? When I show it to them, they're like, what the hell is going on right now?
Yeah. But we had like issues. So the first app we used was a company out of Germany, and they ended up getting bought by, I think, Google or Apple. I forget who. But then they got shut down.
Yeah.
So that's when the publisher paid a coder or a developer, and they developed their own app. And yeah, that's kind of still working.
And what was the reaction from the gallery that you were trying to? Did they then get it? Like, did it snap for them?
Funny thing is I never went back.
Right.
I never went back because I was just like it was so many years later, and then the person I was talking to there, he moved on to another museum in the States. But funny thing is that years later, I was part of an exhibition at Galerie Blanc, which is like an outdoor space in the gay village here in Montreal, and they do art on the street, and they have like this beautiful gallery in like a lot just off St. Catherine Street, and they have some pretty great artists there. So I did a project there with them, and what I proposed to them was, hey, maybe this would be a good time to revisit that Beaux-Arts Museum, that Fine Arts Museum project. And so the curator of that approached the museum, and he pitched it to them, and they were in. So I ended up doing it outside of the museum on St. Catherine Street. But the funny thing is that you could still take that app and go to the museum and look at the paintings on the wall, and they would animate. So it kind of happened in the end, through a roundabout way. I've done last year, I did a book with the Bavarian State Opera where we did their whole program with augmented reality, and like the posters are augmented reality. And so that was one way to get it off the net.
Well, I remember when the book first came out, and you had said in short, like what you just explained to me, which was just like build your own app, like don't because of course the stuff's got to be housed somewhere, which is when I started looking into it, and something really clicked for me last year when Artify, like that was like a huge game changer. So Artify is an app. Not only is it incredibly easy and free on the user end, right? Because again, so you've got I'm trying to develop an app in Unity But it was kind of like lagging. I wasn't really doing it much because I knew that there was also this huge barrier of like, now I got to get like the thing uploaded and people to download it. And then I have to like do IT, you know, I have to do maintenance for all of this for however long. But Artify, like, it just has like changed everything about the way that I do stuff, because one of the main like digital literacy programs that I do with young people is we take cameras, we go around and we photograph our surroundings, and then we animate those images. And I swear to God, if I have to make another MP4 compilation video, I was going to poke my eye out, right? You know, it's not meant to be seen this way. They're not meant to be seen for 15 seconds and then the next like title card, or like, it's just heinous. Like, it just makes me want to scream. Another thing that is amazing about GIFs compared to a video file, of course, is they are aspect ratio defying, right? Like, you don't need to have a background. You can have something that's actually the shape of the heart. You don't need to have it 1080, you know, like, you don't need to have it be a rectangle, right? So
yeah, that's what's fun about it, is that, you know, take a picture of a mural on the side of the building, animate that. You could go up there with your device and point it at it and have it animate. Or, you know, trigger a video or trigger a song or whatever. You know, augmented reality is really fun in that sense, that it could be anything, really. And like you were saying with Artify, it's great because it's such a user-friendly space to experiment with AR.
I've been doing it with just stuff in my studio, and like just to like impress my friends or like impress my 5-year-old. If people are like, "What is happening right now?" They're just
that's one of the problems with it too, though, is that you kind of have to show them first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the problem at that outdoor gallery. So you would go to it and you just be like, oh, the Museum of Fine Arts has paintings up out here, not knowing that there's an animation behind it if you use the app. But it's, you know, explained on the card right beside it that nobody reads.
Yeah.
So that was the problem, you know, is that the engagement wasn't that great.
I want to double back though for a second. This is a great segue into the whole conversation about audience building and stuff, because I find it fascinating that you said that you were doing the GIF a day for friends, and that you were putting them on a place like Tumblr, because Instagram has kind of taken that model. Like, I mean, the doing a thing a day. Like in terms of the proliferation, Tumblr was a much more, you know, community, smaller community, insular community kind of space.
Totally, yeah.
And that is now like a professionalist like trend. Like that is a way to build an audience.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to start from scratch today, it would have to be, I'd have to pump stuff out every day and post every day and be smart with hashtags, I guess. Like, I don't really hashtag anything. I used to on Tumblr. Once I noticed like people started like finding my stuff and liking it, it's like, oh, maybe I could reach a bigger audience. But I don't know how I would start that today. Yeah, you have to produce content. You have to put it out there. And I think the biggest thing that like a lot of people don't get, actually, this is super important. But I think one thing that I was always open to was collaborating with people. It was to, like, you know, if somebody sent me a message, like, was to respond, and like, or sending people, like, liking other people's work and like, hey, we should do something together, or we should, like, you know, like, send me that image, I'd love to animate it. Like, that was something I used to do. And that was part
via
of
Tumblr,
you know,
or Instagram?
Via Tumblr, yeah.
Right.
You know, like, I really like that drawing. Do you mind if I animate it? And then, you know, that would serve two purposes for me, because like I liked the artist and I would, you know, I wanted to like connect with them. But the other thing that I did, it just gave me something to animate that day. I used to work at a career library at Concordia University here. So it's like, I mean, I was just working in the library helping out, and it was a small little space, but students used to come in and, you know, like how do I take my art, you know, my art degree and make a career out of it? And, you know, like I didn't really have an answer, so I'd like pick up these books, you know, while like the library was empty or while it was quiet, and I'd start reading these books, you know, like, you know, how to get into like electrical engineering, or, you know, how to write a CV, how to do this, how to do that. But, you know, I was interested in the art book, you know, like an art career. And like one thing that I read that I 100% agree with, and I recommend this to any young artist or any person who wants to break into a profession, is like networking. Like, that's the thing. Go to openings, go to galleries, like talk to artists, hang around artists, be with artists. And that was what that community you were talking about with Tumblr, like that's what it kind of was for me, was that people would send me messages, you know, and I would send people messages, and we'd like each other's things and comment on each other's things. We'd collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
And there was really good editors at Tumblr at the time, like people who would be in charge of certain like hashtags, like the GIF hashtag, for example, who would like, you know, send jobs or would like hook up different artists, like, oh, you should work with this person and do that. And like, that's
amazing.
And, you know, at the same time, you know, kind of bringing it back to luck, this was at a time where like GIFs just kind of exploded. Like they had like their own sort of weird renaissance, like not to, you know, pun intended, I guess, you know, but they had that renaissance where they just became ubiquitous. Like they just blew up. And yeah, it's just being at the right place at the right time for me.
Yeah,
you know,
with an interest that was shared by a lot of other people and just happened to, yeah.
And that's it. And I'm fairly introverted. And while this was happening, I was just like, you know what? For the next year, I'm just going to say yes to everything.
Right.
You know, if somebody asked me to speak in front of a crowd, I've dropped classes in university because I had to do a presentation in front of the class. You know, and then like, now I'm just like, yeah, I'll do it. Cool. Let's go. You know, like I just said yes to like everything. Even like jobs for quote unquote exposure I would do.
Right.
Like, for no pay. Like, I mean, depending on the client, you know, if it was like a big client who obviously had money, I wouldn't let myself get taken advantage in that way, you know, but like I would just do stuff to do stuff. And like that was, you know, that year, that was actually maybe 2 years of it, you know, and now like it's my career, it's like my job, and like I get money making silly little animations, and I think that's important.
But I wanted to ask you a bit about the transition from Tumblr into Instagram.
Yeah, I think it was just because like I would go on Instagram to look at other people's, like look at what my friends are up to and like look at other people's art and follow things. You know, I followed certain artists and stuff. So I go on it for that. And then I was like, how do I make this a thing that would be interesting for, you know, my followers on Tumblr to come over and look at? And that's kind of how that transition happened. And that was the other thing about Tumblr that was super frustrating, is that they had these limits on the size of the GIF. Like they couldn't post a GIF over 2 megabytes.
Oh God! Right.
And then like I was getting more proficient in animation. I was getting better at making these things, and it was just a nightmare to export a GIF sometimes, like to get it down under 200 megabytes. And I was like, so I make this beautiful animation, I go export it, and it'd be like 25 megabytes as a GIF. It's like, well, fuck, I can't even upload it. So what am I going to do with this?
Interesting.
Export it as a movie, put it on Instagram. Or as a movie, sorry, as a move.
Yeah.
Put it on Instagram.
It's like this tech ceiling.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because like on Instagram, the ceiling was a lot higher. So like it essentially kind of became a place like I put like a low quality GIF on Tumblr, and then I'd be like, if you want to see the better version of this, check out my Instagram. You know.
Right. And were you doing both forever in perpetuity, or did you leave Tumblr before Tumblr left us all?
I would do both for the longest time, but oftentimes where I have like a GIF that I just couldn't get under that ceiling, I would just not post it. And every once in a while I'll try to go back and like, but that's the thing, like my stuff's too big now. It's too big for Tumblr, like in file size wise. Right. It's just too big for Tumblr.
Yeah, you just blew up.
Like,
yeah.
I'm too big for Tumblr now. No, literally, the file size is... I mean, Tumblr, I don't even know what's happening there anymore.
Yeah.
I check in on it once in a while, but it seems like there's still a little community going, which is kind of fun.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the Instagram stuff, obviously, like then now you're dealing with like a square format, so it's not really a ceiling, but it's walls, and there's different stuff. Yeah. Like
the stories is fun because I can post more in the stories. You know, I can just post whatever there, but. You know, like, and that was the other thing too. Like, I was making animations that were about Instagram. Like, I put Instagram in my animations, like, you know, scrolling and liking photos.
Right.
Like, that became a thing too. I mean, I think that, like, a lot of what I do is just, like, walking around in the dark with my arms out, you know? Like, I just, like, bump into things and find things that way. Like, I'm not really good at coming up with a plan. I'm not good at hustling. I think where my strengths are is just, you know, putting my stuff naively out there. And I think maybe and it connects with people in a weird way. And I like that. I like trying to be as like honest and sincere about it as possible. And like having those relationships with people. And I think that's important for an art practice. Or, you know, even for any kind of job. It's like, you gotta go out there and be willing to make the mistakes and not worry too much about what other people do. And just be honest with your work.
When I was with you in Montreal, I guess like going on 3 years ago now, you were working on some funny beer stuff for Amstel. What are some of the most hilarious gigs you've gotten from doing this, from choosing this career path, this strange career path that most people's parents would say stay away from, but you've done quite well, and you've also gotten to be involved in some pretty hilarious and fun stuff.
Oh man, I was looking at my client list the other day. Like I was updating my CV and I was just like, holy shit, like I've worked with these people. Like I've done work for Gucci. Like I've done multiple animation, or maybe like 4 or 5 contracts with them, like doing animation. I've done some editorial stuff with the New York Times, Old Spice through Wyden Kennedy, it's the ad agency. Like those are always fun projects, and they're great to work with.
What did you do for Gucci? They're creative.
Gucci, the first job I did for them, they have a shoe, the Ace shoe, and they did it. It was like the 24 hours Ace. So they had Instagram, or I guess animators and digital artists or Instagram people make animation or whatever. I made an animation about the day of the life of a shoe,
right?
Where it's a shoe wakes up in bed, does a little workout, gets on its motorbike, goes to work, does a presentation, impresses the bosses, leaves work, goes to the beach, then goes to a nightclub, and that's its day. Goes like dancing, and yeah, so that was like my 24 hours in the life of this Ace shoe.
Has anybody ever asked you to do something that's not funny?
No, like Gucci, they've always been great. Like they kind of give me free reign to do stuff. Like they don't, put their hands in it too much. Like obviously they don't want me to put like, super sacrilegious stuff in the work, which is totally understandable. Like the
save that for your own fun.
Yeah, but like I'll say this: like I've worked with certain creative directors that have definitely made my work better. And like they'll send me a revision list, and like at first, like I'll look at it at first and like roll my eyes, and then like I'll get into it and I'll be like, you know what, they were right. Like they're pros. Like they know exactly. Like this is all better. Like this made my work better.
When I assume you get like, I must, correct me if I'm wrong, but you get most of your work through. Well, one, I'm assuming that you haven't applied to anything in a long time. Job, gig.
No.
Show.
No. Show, I wish I had time to, I'd love to do more shows, but no, it's pretty much all Instagram. Hey, I'm so-and-so from here. Like, do you have time, or would you be interested in like talking to us about this? And then it's almost, I mean, it's a good problem to have. I'm not going to say it's frustrating, but sometimes, where like I have time to post on Instagram. Like I'll finish a big job and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks and I'm going to post on Instagram. I'll post regularly. And then like I'll do 2 posts and then I'll get a message from somebody like, hey, you want to work on this? And I'm like, fuck. Okay. Because I got to make a living, I don't want to make it sound like I'm like living rich or anything, it's like I got to hustle. I got to work to survive, So yeah, I do say yes to a lot of things because it's that feast and famine thing too, It's like being a freelancer, you never know where you're going to get money. Like my work for like, Old Spice or Gucci or whatever else, like it's not commercial work, it's like content for their socials, really.
Interesting.
Like I'm helping them fill that space. Like I've done a couple like little commercials here and there, but it's mainly content for socials.
But have you ever had an instance where you're just like, oh, I took this gig, but I'm feeling like their art monkey?
Yeah, there's been a few of those for sure.
Are those the best paying ones, or?
No, not even. The best paying ones for me are the ones that are just like, let me do what I want. No, the art monkey ones, yeah, I've had a few of those, come to think of it, yeah. For me, like I've been really, really lucky. I've been really fortunate that people generally want to hire me for what I do. Mm-hmm. Like, I've had jobs where I'm like an animation monkey. Like they just want me to animate something, and that's fine. If you want to pay me to do that, that's okay.
I'll be your monkey. Yeah, it's a good, yeah.
If it's a good gig, if it, will cover like, a couple months of rent, sure. Like, I'm down. Like I'm cool with that, But I've said no to things that you could just tell that they're not right, or that doesn't fit what you want to do, or it just like doesn't align with like what I believe politically, Like, like I won't participate in that. And that's okay too. I mean, if you're broke and somebody, comes to you and is like, I want you to be my animator for like my wedding photos. I don't know how that would happen.
Yeah.
Totally. I want you to animate. I mean, if it's a good gig, do it. If it doesn't compromise too much. I did a job where we took people's vacation photos and we animated them, and that turned out to be a lot of fun.
So I wanted to ask you about Giphy. Like, they pay for some GIFs to be made as well, right? Which is...
Yeah, they were trying to hook up creators with, like, companies and whoever to, like, or different projects to... I think it was like $500 US a GIF or something. I forget how much they were getting to people.
Well, I know there's been a lot of pushback. There was like Taylor Swift was freaking out recently about Spotify, right? So these platforms, they create these amazing ways for us to connect with audiences, sans the like old gatekeepers. Like if Instagram went away tomorrow, right? If you're saying you get all your gigs off of Instagram.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Like I definitely have been taken advantage of like a lot of times. Like or I felt as if like I've put way more into something than I've gotten out. You know, financially, especially. Like, for example, like I get a lot of emails from people who want me to do music videos for them. And then I'm like, okay, you know, like, I like your band or that song's pretty cool. Like, what's your budget? I'm like, oh, I don't really have any money. And it's like, well, I can't help you. Like, because, you know, like, this is going to take me 2 to 3 months. You know, like, if you want to, like, work on getting a grant together or you're trying to find some, like, you know, weird space to get money, like I'd be down to, like, you know, co-sign a grant proposal. You know, like, I'd be down to do this or that. You know, if I really like the band or I like the song, like, I'm down. But now I just say no. Like, I'm just like, I don't do music videos. You know, like, because, well, there's no money in music anymore, unfortunately. When that sucks, that's a whole other conversation. You know, I think musicians should get paid a lot more. Yeah, no, that happens a lot.
It is connected to this conversation, right? Because it's connected to this idea of sharing of content, being able to just float around aimlessly, not connected to its creator. So people just being able to proliferate and share your stuff around without anyone knowing who the hell you are.
Well, that's it. Like Giphy, right? It's like that's how I felt about Giphy after a while. It's just like I was like posting so many things there, and then I noticed like they would send me jobs at the beginning. Like I'd get jobs through them, and they were great. And, you know, like it wouldn't take me very long or I could adapt something I've already made. And like, I appreciated that. Like I appreciated that they're at least trying to figure out a way to pay their creators. But then after a while, like a view on a GIF is kind of like a ridiculous like metric, you know, because like if you have like a 2-second loop, you know, like somebody might watch it like 10 or 15 times before they go on to something else. But like I was close to 1 billion, like last time I checked, I was like close to 1 billion views on my GIFs, you know, and it's like, I'm just pumping out this content up there. And like, what is it getting me? Like, there's no link back. Nobody knows that it's me that's making it. I don't want to put like a watermark over it. Like I put my little signature on the bottom of them, but it's like, what is this effort getting me in the end? Trying to, you know, break the GIF down to a size that would work and then post it there. And then like people can share it and use it. And yeah, it just felt like an art monkey for them, you know? And like, I still post my stuff there once in a while, but it's definitely less of an emphasis. Like, whereas like, you know, with like Instagram, like I could see that relation, like people could comment on it. Like I could talk to people, you know, like people know that it's me that makes it, you know, like at least there's that engagement, you know, like you can participate in it. You can participate in the animation once it's out there and it still belongs to you. Whereas like I found like with like GIFs, it's just like, yeah, like you put it on the internet and it just disappears and people, like I don't know how many times I've seen my work with somebody else's like watermark over it.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, back in the early days, like when GIFs are all over Facebook, there's so many of those like GIF like aggregate sites where they're just like medieval art GIFs or like medieval or whatever, like GIF porn was another one, not pornography, but they just take GIFs like from people and they put their fucking like logo on it and not credit the creators.
Holy
and
shit.
Like I remember once I messaged them and I was like, hey, you know, it'd be nice if you. And they're like, well, we don't have the time to figure out who makes what. And it's like, no, fuck off. You do.
Yeah.
Just image search it. It takes 2 seconds, you know? Like, oh, those people are pieces of shit. Like, I hate that. Like, at least take the second to credit the creator. Like, it's not hard.
Well, and how is art your business and then that you don't give a shit about the you know, I mean, it's interesting because I worry about like what, you know, everybody having that mentality. So like the people, like that mentality becoming the norm, right?
Yeah.
So that the fans in the social media context also don't give a shit and don't credit or whatever. But it doesn't tend to be that way because when people admire people, they're like, you know, you got to check out this guy. He's really great. Yeah. You got to see his work. They tend to give credit where credit is due, especially if they're not creating it. And then you've got these platforms that are kind of the same as museums and the gallery, industrial complex that's like, okay, we're providing, like, we connect you with the audience and we connect, you know what I mean? Or like, we're providing and we'll just... which has been traditionally a space that's been very exploitative of the artists that are the reason that they exist, right? Like,
but that's it. Like, if it's like an individual, if it's just like, some kid in like Kansas or, like who has like a Facebook that has like, he has like 300 friends on it, post my GIF without credit. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. Like, I just like that they like it. But yeah, when it's like, this people who are, like that Facebook page GIF porn, like they were, they're selling merch, like they were doing all these other things. They were trying to like monetize this platform, like based off the work of other people, which is like, it's very capitalist. It's like, it's a thing, but the goal, like, I don't know. It's just like, have some consideration for the people who are making your content. There was like, a girl who took a bunch of my GIFs and made a music video out of it for this like popular singer in like Eastern Europe, and like it was on YouTube. It's just like, nobody asked me permission for this. Nobody, it's just like, take it down. Like, but they're like, well, it was on the internet. We thought it was fair use. It's like, how is that even a thing?
That's very interesting. Yeah.
Like, but that's the mentality. I, in a weird sense, like, I know it's not hypocritical, but I kind of feel as if it's like, there's like a tinge of like hypocrisy in me because I do take these paintings. And maybe that's part of the reason why I like to kind of go full circle in this conversation a bit. Maybe like that's the reason why I try to get as far away from the paintings as possible and use it as a palette. It's like, I don't want to just be like profiting off these paintings like by using them straight up or representing them straight up. I want to use them as a palette and get as far away from it as possible. It's kind of like, remixing it in a way that's unrecognizable.
Yeah, and it's changed your process because of it or whatever, your relationship with the actual images and stuff. I mean, it's interesting because from a literacy standpoint, like, the more you're interacting with something, so it's even the Facebook person like reposting it, like the time that they're taking to download that and stuff, like they are engaging with the content, and you are engaging with content in a huge ass way by being like, hey, that hair looks like a speaker, grid, like that's as engaged as it gets. No one is engaging with Renaissance paintings as much as you, my friend. So, like...
No, that's why I'm like, like I just have that kind of like, am I doing it too, maybe? In the back of my head. I know I'm not, because I'm actually working with it. Like, I'm remixing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to be thoughtful about those things. The internet is a space that encourages fast production and little thought around those things. So it's hard to...
You build these platforms that need content. It thrives off content. Get validated through, likes and shares and popularity and becoming influencers, and they gotta feed the monster. They're not gonna care, but how do you make people care? I think that's an interesting thing. Like, I think I have a feeling, and I have this sense that it's kind of going towards that, like authenticity is kind of coming back as a thing, and that's being really appreciated. And that'll trickle down, and that will work.
Yeah. I feel like if there was a format, right? Like, I think if there was a format, like, because there's so many times I want to credit things and I can't even, or like it takes so long to track someone down. And often, anytime I do, again, their response, and I was telling you this like a couple of years ago, their response is like, oh my God, thank you so much for asking.
No, but it's amazing that you did. Like, I sometimes get messages from people like, hey, I'd love to share this. I'm like, share it. Like, please, like, I love that you want to share it. Like, I put it out there for people to share and to look at. I love it when people ask, like, if you want to share it, whatever, if you follow me and you want to hit share, you don't have to ask me, obviously.
Right.
But if it's like a magazine in Peru, who wants to share it on their social media, like, yes. I'm so happy you asked.
I'm going to ask you my little lightning round questions here.
The lightning round. Awesome.
So just like one word, whatever. GIF or emoji?
GIF.
Email or DMs?
Email.
Phone call or text message?
Text message.
Video chat or voice note?
Voice.
Twitter or Instagram?
Instagram.
Thank you so much, James, for...
My pleasure.
For chatting with me. And thanks to those listening out there. Join me on the next episode of We Make Media when I speak with Afrofuturist Quentin Versetti about his technofossils and augmented reality monuments. Until then, stay creative and do be artists.